Welcome everyone to the Foundry by Forge College. I am absolutely thrilled to have you joining us for today's explainer. So, in our last session, we wrapped up our guided build covering ERC 1155 core and platform integrations. We put together some incredibly functional architecture there. But today, today's the day we take that freshly built RESTful API engine straight out of the factory and put it right onto the test track. As part of our capstone project on deploying a full RESTful API, we're going to dive deep into testnet deployment and real-time monitoring. Okay, let's just dive right into it.
Here is our engineering test flight checklist for the day. Welcome to the test track, preparing the blueprint, starting the engine, monitoring the dashboard, and lastly, diagnosing the data.
All right, Section 1. Welcome to the test track. It is time to take our API out of the factory.
To really grasp what we're doing today, we have to talk about exactly where we're going. And we are heading to a testnet. You can think of a testnet as this, high-fidelity sandbox environment. It perfectly simulates the main Solana blockchain. Complete with real network latency, real block times, and real cryptographic validation. But here is the absolute magic of it. It allows for completely safe, consequence-free testing. Right? Instead of risking real money, we use test sol, which is basically developer monopoly money. Now, this requires a bit of a psychological shift. We aren't just in local development on our laptops anymore. We're in a live, distributed environment where we can safely experience real-world noise without, actually risking any real assets.
Moving right along to Section 2, preparing the blueprint. Let's look at our pre-flight checklist.
Before we can even think about turning the key in the ignition, we need to gather our components. And we have 4 totally non-negotiable requirements here. First up, our API codebase and a Docker file to package it. Second, a testnet RPC URL. This is basically our communication bridge to the Solana network. Third, our server key pair, which is the exact identity our API uses to sign transactions. And fourth, our observability stack, which we're going to use to monitor performance. Now, listen to me very closely on this one. Do not, under any circumstances, commit that server key pair to source control. You must strictly use a secrets manager or environment variables. Seriously, committing private keys to GitHub is the exact equivalent of leaving your brand new car running, doors unlocked, with the keys sitting right there on the dashboard. Just don't do it.
Okay, Section 3, starting the engine. We've got our parts, so let's get into deployment and transactions. To actually get our API out onto the test track, we need to package it up perfectly. And we do this by running a really simple command, docker build-t capstone API /latest . This command reads our Docker file and creates a fully reproducible container image. It bundles our Node.js code, all of our dependencies, and our runtime environment into one standardized box. It essentially guarantees that the engine we built in the factory is going to run exactly the same way when we finally drop it onto the testnet.
So once that container is up and humming along, we have 3 primary endpoints we use to validate our transaction flow. First, there's our post request to API/transactions. This is where we submit a transaction using our server key pair. We really want to monitor the submission rate and the RPC latency here. Next, we've got a GET request to API/transaction/ID/status. This is our polling mechanism. We're literally just asking the network, hey, is my transaction finalized yet? We watch the confirmation latency really closely on this one. And finally, we have a post to API/webhook test. Once a transaction hits our desired confirmation threshold, our API emits a webhook out to an external service. It's essentially our delivery receipt, proving the whole cycle actually worked.
But let's be realistic for a second. When you map all of this out, you really have to account for 2 vastly different realities. On one hand, you've got the happy path. You submit a transaction, it gets confirmed in a second, and your webhook fires instantly. It is absolutely beautiful. But then there's the error path, and welcome to the chaotic reality of testnet potholes. You are for sure going to encounter unexpected RPC timeouts, sudden rate limits from your provider, and delayed network confirmations. A truly robust API doesn't just work on the happy path, right? It aggressively manages that error path using retry queues and exponential backoff to keep the car on the road when things get bumpy.
Section 4. Monitoring the dashboard. Time to look at our observability pillars.
To know exactly how our engine is performing amidst all that testnet chaos we just talked about, we rely on the observability triad. Honestly, without this, you're just driving blindfolded. First up, we have metrics. Metrics give us our aggregate health, so things like request rates, error counts, and latency histograms. They tell us if something is wrong. Second, we have traces.
Traces follow specific request flows as they travel through our system, showing us exactly where a bottleneck is happening. So they tell us where something is wrong. And third, we have structured logs. Logs give us the deep context for root cause debugging. They tell us exactly why something went wrong.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is how we tie those three pillars together, and we do it using correlation IDs. A correlation ID is a unique tag, kind of like a request ID, that gets attached to a transaction the very second it enters our API, and it follows it through every single metric, trace, and log entry. I'm not kidding. Without correlation IDs, trying to debug a failed transaction under heavy load is literally like trying to track a single speeding car through massive bumper-to-bumper test track traffic. It's completely impossible. But with them, you can filter your entire dashboard down to one exact request lifecycle.
All right, Section 5, diagnosing the data. Let's talk webhooks and remediation.
Let's analyze the signals generated during a simulated load test. You might suddenly see this really sharp spike in RPC latency, right alongside a jump in RPC error counts. If you see this on your dashboard, do not panic. These bottlenecks are perfectly normal on a testnet. Actually, testnets are intentionally under-resourced compared to mainnets just to simulate this kind of stress. What this data is telling us is that our single RPC connection is just being overwhelmed by our transaction submission rate. We are hitting a rate limit or maybe a timeout threshold.
And that leads us to our first actionable remediation step. If your metrics prove that RPC latency is your bottleneck, you should consider adding a local RPC cache or a secondary fallback RPC provider. Think of this like adding a heavy-duty shock absorber to our vehicle. By caching those frequent read requests locally or, gracefully failing over to a backup node when the primary chokes, we smooth out those testnet potholes and we keep our API humming along without dropping any user requests.
Next, let's look at our delivery receipts. Now, a 100% success rate on the very first try is actually highly suspicious during a stress test. We want to see some failures here, because it means our system is really being pushed to its limits. Verifying that our API can handle a webhook failure, like maybe the external receiver is down, or verifying the signature fails, is crucial. We need to know for sure that our retry logic kicks in exactly as designed when simulated failures happen. Which brings us to our second major remediation step. If webhook delivery fails entirely under heavy load, you need to add a durable queue. Look, if our external receiver goes down for maintenance, we can't just throw away the confirmation receipt. A durable queue ensures that those pending webhooks are safely persisted in memory or on disk. Our system will just patiently wait, retrying with that exponential backoff we talked about until the receiver finally comes back online. It is literally the ultimate resilience mechanism for any Web3 API.
And finally, our conclusion and next steps. The big question, are we ready for mainnet?
Well, we've built the engine, we packaged it, deployed it out to the testnet, and rigorously monitored its telemetry. We've proven our API is reachable, our transactions are confirming on-chain, and our webhooks are firing reliably. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Can your API actually handle the chaos of real-world scale? The tools and observability practices we established today are exactly what will save you when you finally merge onto that high-speed mainnet highway. By mastering real-time monitoring, you take the guesswork totally out of engineering. I highly encourage you to keep exploring these concepts. Head over to forge.college to dive deeper into this subject, master the rest of your Web3 journey, and check out way more of our advanced engineering content. Keep building, keep testing, and I will see you in the next explainer.